Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, the mysterious Wolcamophone, here to give you extremely hacky tips on character design. So forever ago, I made this YouTube poop out of Has Been Hotel, and since then I've been following the show in the background because they haven't been working on the main show. I guess they've just been doing the spin-off, and I've seen theories that eventually the spin-off that they were making is going to lead into the show somehow. Besides all that, recently I saw they changed up the character design, and I'm just gonna spoil it right now. I'm on the side. I prefer the old design. There's quite a lot of people who like the new design, but then again, there's quite a lot of people who will just go with anything if you shove it in front of their face, and they'll be like, oh my god, I love it. But then there's those select few that might see it as a bit of a downgrade. I have a few example photos that I've taken from Twitter, a few mock-up sketches of the new design. Actually, hold on a minute. Anyways, I have a few sketches here that I totally drew myself. Give credit to me. Anyways. I'm just gonna go over real quick why the newer design might seem like a bit of a downgrade to some people. Point number 1. Has Been Hotel as a show already is kind of weird. The vibe you get from it, to me at least, seems like something you might feel from MLP or something like that. It kind of has that Tumblr bait quality to it where everything's all whimsical. Except the thing is, I feel like Has Been Hotel has a bit more of a reach. It seems to be targeting more than just girls who happen to get this weird accidental fan base. But on the other hand, it's also alienating another audience by being this 18-plus show-ish with all these swear words and stuff. Because it's hell. I mean, it kind of makes sense, whatever. Meta gimmicks aside, the other thing the show might be known for, with how Tumblr bait and whimsical it is the colors. Anyone who has seen the pilots of the show know that, there's a lot of color and a lot of detail shoved into each scene. Personally, when it comes to something like too many colors on screen, I'm not one to complain. I don't mind. I think it's just more of some people have different tolerances to how much noise can happen on screen before it becomes overwhelming. If it's not too colorful, as some people might see, it's very saturated. A lot of the main colors you see in Has Been Hotel are stuff like reds and purples and pinks and shit like that. With the old design here, let's call this the clown design, just because she looks more like a girl with clown makeup more than anything, versus the new design, which is just more red so far. It literally looks like they took the paint bucket tool and just did that. Look at that. That right there is literally the new color palette, except for a few things, but you get the point. It doesn't seem like they changed that much, which I mean, beforehand they had this good color of darks and reds. Down here the legs are a bit less important. You have a red top that draws attention to the upper body, which is where people will be looking anyways. With this, it's now the whole character is just one big unifying color, and it's it makes them seem more flat. A good example I can show is in a few of these images here where there's actual backgrounds. This is the official photo they uploaded to Twitter. And as you can see, everything in this photo, if it weren't for this weird God rays filter, there's way too much red in this photo still. Charlie's legs are blending into the couch here. And also, another thing I feel that's kind of weird is the new tuxedo they gave her makes her now look more like she's just stolen Alistair's tuxedo for some reason. Then again, I don't have a picture of Alistair here, but just off the top of my head, I don't think this is helping much. I can't tell if this is secretly going to be a troll down the line and they're going to change her design back, being oopsie. Let's look at another example here. This is a screenshot from the show, and as you can see, Charlie's tuxedo in this photo does blend into the walls a bit more. But the other actual main colors at least tell you where parts of her are. Meanwhile, here, with her tux, it is made a bit brighter and a bit more saturated compared to the background, which looks like it's had saturation lowered. But you still get this effect that, the colors are just clashing too much. Point number 2, which is kind of a sub-point of point number 1, is, this especially doesn't work with the eyes, or the irises. The simple dot eyes worked before, and are part of, the line art. When you have the eyes like this, where there's not really an outline to them, and they're just flat circles on top of another background of this off-white yellow shade, you get this effect where it's again, looking from a distance, it makes the character look more flat, because your eyes looking at her eyes, that's weird to think about. Your eyes looking at her eyes see that color and don't take it in as well as like black, which is a more bold color. Probably like the boldest color you could get compared to all the other colors in the spectrum. Especially if you use it like this for an outline, because it helps your eyes visually adjust to where the borders are. If I were to go up here real quick and just apply some black and white filter, you might notice this quality to where over here you can see her face looks like a normal sketch. But on this version, because her eyes are a color and not black, they suddenly like wash back into the background of her eyes, which are already an off color of white. It's not going to be black and white like this in the show, but this is just something to help you visualize maybe why having colored borderless irises like this would not work as well. Just a quick note, the reason they probably did this was because there are other characters in the series who have unconventionally colored eyes, so they're probably just trying to match back up with the theme they already had. Point number 3, I think the reason they redesigned her like this was to make her seem more like a princess of hell. It seems like they did it well enough because they added a few more bits of flare and angle to the hairs. If that's all you needed was to just change up the shape that subtle bit more, I don't see why they added the rest of the color. Watching the pilot and like her attitude before she goes anywhere on stage or anything like that, she kind of gives off this vibe of other giddy female characters you've seen in kids shows like Mabel Pines or Star Butterfly and Star vs. the Forces of Evil. And so I guess they tried doing this to make her seem more sophisticated now and to turn her character in a different direction before they actually started doing the show. But now that it's like this, it kind of takes away some of the enthusiasm of the show itself. Arguably, Charlie is the main character since this hotel seems to be her idea, and so if they tried twisting this now to where she suddenly acts more like royalty, it's going to be such a weird transition. I don't think it works as well anymore. But I guess they did realize that maybe she seems too similar to other characters like that, which is probably why they would change her, just to make her character more unique, which would be admirable, but at the same time, everything here so far seems to be just adding up to like a more flat character. Usually royalty characters are at worst very pompous and full of themselves, and at the least it just seems flat and pretentious because of how whimsical it's trying to be. My 4th point, which is like the point that really gets to me and tells me like something about this is more than just like a simple design choice, is that they changed her last name from Magnay to Morningstar. Lucifer's last name in the show is Morningstar, I guess, which I didn't know that much about the lore, but I guess that's what it is. Of course, if she's the Princess of Hell, it has to be like hereditary royalty. But hearing it just out of earshot gives it this tone of like, oh, they changed it from something that actually sounds like an actual name to some group of words that just sound more whimsical and theatrical to match the rest of the show. As much as characters are a part of your show, your characters shouldn't be that much of the show. It almost makes it feel as if like they're just a background character to the world. It seems like it's removing more and more depth as it goes along. At the end of the day, though, I guess most people like this anyways. It's not that bad compared to other things that have happened in previous years when it comes to any sort of creative media like movies and animation. There has definitely been worse in the past few years that I'm sure all of our brains have probably already blocked out. I guess it'll just take time for us to adjust to this if this is the new character design. We'll all get over it eventually. But I'm gonna be honest with you now. I'm gonna tell you guys like the real reason I made this video, and that was the only thing I want to say is to all the porn artists out there, just make sure you give us the proper alts. That's all my complaint is. You guys can start a war with me in the comments if you want. I did want to make this video though just because I do have a passion for stuff like this. Whenever I see things like this where the character design changed so drastic to where I can start pointing out things and actually deducing, alright, how could this be good or bad to a new character's design? It kind of sends me into artist mode, and that just makes me start wondering about other characters I've done. Now is going to be the section of this recording where I shamelessly promote work I've done, just to share my own experiences as an artist with character design. This is one sketch I've made of like the little emblem guy I use for my YouTube channel. As cool as this looks with the pencil hatching along with the pen outline, and the sick little mouth here is doing like, eh. I would not say this is my favorite design as much, though. I like this little bit of depth here, where the pen actually goes down, and it makes it look like the hair is actually sticking out in 3D space. But something about this head, even though I literally used just like a circle template to draw the base, something about this head has always made me feel like it's been squished down, like it's an oval. I think something about the way I just ended up drawing it in 3D space made it look this way. Also, this section right here kind of gets me for some reason, where the mouth gets way too close to the eye as if there's like no cheek there. It looks like this face is more of a jack-o'-lantern, if anything. And also this hand. If I actually had the sketch for this again, I'd probably end up going back and redrawing the sleeve. Anytime I see a skin-tight sleeve like this on an arm, it makes the character look really more muscular than it should be. So anytime I see shit like this anymore, I always gotta give like a bit of hang-off. Like that. And then suddenly the arms seem thinner and the sleeves seem to fit around the body more. I've tried in the past to make character sheets and they're like difficult as fuck. These are just like a handful of things I would draw when I was bored in high school to try to get the new design down for that face. And as you can see, there's still like a bunch of the same rough shape there. Half of these are just me drawing circles and failing. And as you can see here, I even tried pointing out some details onto why this face looks unique. Here I tried doing a bit more stuff with the body, but something about these shapes just seem a bit too geometric. I've never used this sheet again, I don't think. Even the arm offset here just makes me a bit uncomfortable now looking at it from some aspects. There's this sketch I did, which is literally just a picture of my sketchbook. Again, it's kind of the same problem as the last image where the head looks too squished down for some reason. And also I've gotten lazier at drawing the body and limbs, but then again, it is easy to block stuff like this. And I've even had a good hand at like doing some 3D model work. As you can see here by these sketches on the sides, I have the same sort of torso to shoulder design with that back curve of the spine, almost to make it look like a baseball tee or something like that. And the body does look kind of good. I don't know. I've never been able to get past spherical heads. Something about like the basic bitch 2 dots in a line smiley face really gets to me, and I've always stuck to like this gumball head design. Even so, if I were to look back at this thing and look back at what all I did for the model, I'd probably still end up changing a few things anyways. Sometimes I even end up doing stuff like this, where it's like, I break away from the gumball heads for a bit. I don't even know where I'd use this character, but I like the design so much, just because this is one example where the jagged edges and the angles of the arms were able to fit for once. But even though I do like this style, and I wish I could use it in other places, I feel like this character ends up being like too specific to this drawing, so it feels hard to find other places to use it. This is one design where I tried to do a bit of like a gas mask helmet for Space Ghost from another project I worked on. Not gonna mention it here, but yeah, whatever. It kind of looks like a shitty version of Darth Vader's helmet just because it doesn't have the flaps on the side. It looks like this weird geometric mess again just because it's still sticking to the spheroid heads. I have gone out of my way to try and make more fleshed out character docs and model sheets for characters. Like this, the protagonist for said comic that I mentioned earlier. I even pointed out one example here where I fucked up once, where it's like, usually the hair is supposed to be curved like this because it adds depth to the character, like the hair is actually curving over the head. Whereas here it's just straight, and it looks like this weird flat mess. Up here you can see a bit where I have this new design now, where the bodies are still rectangular, but they have these teardrops here for the shoulders. I've become more of a fan of drawing clothes as well. Just because with clothes, I can do this thing where parts of it are really loose, and it sort of lets me cheat at the design. I really like this, though. The one part where it's like I was able to make the square bodies work for a bit when I was first starting at drawing. But it's weird, because like now that I get more into the methodology of it, stuff starts to be able to seem more like mistakes. This too, this little bit right here, where it's like I tried doing square bodies, but eventually I thought, like, the character needs to slouch more, so I just started doing this. And I'd say, fuck it, this is part of the line art. Or this could be part of his messed up shadow or something standing against the wall. I even have stuff like this. Again, this was from a film project I made that featured that Space Ghost character from earlier. I'm a huge fan of tuxedos as well, and I have one of these, and I wore one for a slight bit of filming for a project I did. And looking off of just these photos as well, I tried making my own character doodles and models. If anything, I'd probably say this is one of my most complete design characters, other than the fact that, like, I have an obsession for collecting pins now for this jacket, so anytime I end up filming with this jacket, there's new pins on it, adding more depth to the character that way. So it becomes this whole mess of, like, trying to keep stuff on point. My point is, after all that, character design is not like a one-shot thing. A lot of the times you can look back through your head and see, like, oh yeah, this is what the character looks like. But then sometimes, as any artist knows, when you're translating the cool stuff you see in your head to what you can put out through a pen and paper, a lot of the times it doesn't come out like 100% as glorious as you think it looks. And with animation, sometimes you have to be able to replicate those character designs as many times as possible. So you end up developing these models and trying to see, like, what feels best for the character. It's a very slow process with a lot of steps, and sometimes, you know, some designs stick out better than others. Sometimes you come back to a project after a few days, and then suddenly you're like, wow, this looks like garbage. Why did I let this sit like this for a minute? And so you change stuff up. This is all stuff I learned by myself, by the way. This is I've just been shit spitting this whole video. I've made all this stuff up on the spot, just by, like, observation. Not to flex my learning skills or nothing, but yeah, that's just a quick rundown as to, like, why this works a bit less compared to, like, the actual environment of the show. It is a bit weird, but if they handle the characters right, I'm sure people will just get used to it anyways, and then we can look back at this, like, 5 years from now and be like, wow, the clown design from the pilot really was kind of cool. I guess people can just have their favorites by the end of the day anyways. There's gonna be tons of fan art. To be honest, I don't even care that much about Charlie anyway. Angel Dust is my number one.